Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So today we are going to be climbing at Bloc Shop Chabanel. In the last episode, we were climbing at the Hochelaga location of Bloc Shop, and today we're going to be climbing at the classic Chabanel location. And I always enjoy training in this gym because this place will usually have some of the physically hardest boulders up in the whole province, honestly, at any given time. And like I briefly mentioned in the last episode, even just getting on like one of the white tapes at Bloc Shop Hochelaga sort of reignited my psyche for the white tapes at Bloc Shop in general. And I talk about this a lot throughout the sessions that we have at Bloc Shop. It's just always such a special process trying to conquer a white tape because they're always set perfectly for my physical limit of what I can actually climb. And anytime that I can make my way up a white tape, it's always just such an epic battle, and it always feels like I have to fight at my maximum capabilities, and it really, really pays off when I get ascend, and it's very satisfying. So anyway, after climbing at Hochelaga and doing one white tape, I'd gotten the itch to go try some more. So it was off to Chabanel with hopes to try some white tapes, which we will indeed do. We will get on some white tapes for sure. But I also want to make sure that I'm not just projecting one or two boulders too much. Like I was talking about in the last episode, it's still really important for me to be getting a lot of variety and different styles of climbing in, especially since we are in a maintenance training program, like a maintenance phase, where we're trying to maintain the super big peak that we hit for Vail and really keep this form and this shape going into the next North American Cup in Ottawa. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going to lose that super good intuition I've built if I don't keep my variety of boulders fresh and I just stick to, one or two boulders of one or two styles. I will lose a bit of that intuition by just like a small percentage, which I definitely don't want to do. I want to keep that climbing intuition and good beta reading super, super fresh and primed and ready to go compete. And speaking of good like comp shape and comp instincts, I was really satisfied to get a second attempt send of this yellow boulder. I thought this yellow boulder looked quite hard, and it proved to be the case. And I definitely had to fight my way through these moves to get like a quick send of this boulder, since I wasn't already like accustomed with the ending sequence. Having to learn it on the fly was definitely really difficult. And that was a very satisfying little comp moment, you could say, that I had by getting a fast send of that one. So now we are going to be moving on to the first white tape of the session. And I actually thought that this boulder looked flashable. I also think that my super good shape is getting to my head a bit. And I find myself walking up to hard-looking boulders with a really powerful level of confidence that I haven't had in a while. And it's definitely useful, but sometimes it just turns out to be wrong. This boulder definitely looks like a flashable style of boulder. Like there's not too much beta, at least on the surface level, it looks like. This boulder mainly just consists of some powerful moves on some crimps, but it actually turns out there's quite a bit of micro beta on this boulder, and it's also just very physically difficult, which still makes it hard to flash. So I had a pretty good flash go on this one, but I definitely needed some like proper projecting of this boulder to learn the subtleties. There's like a couple crux moves. I'd say the hardest move is probably that move that I just fell on. Going to the second last crimp, it requires like a lot of tension, honestly, to like stick this second last crimp and keep the left foot. It's not too hard individually, but from the bottom, when your body's fatigued, to be able to execute that kind of body tension well is very, very difficult. And even though the move isn't too bad individually, I still think it's the hardest individual move, just because this boulder is so long. There's definitely no like super cruxy crux. It's just very sustained, and you have to have like a certain level of physicality and fitness to climb a boulder like this, which is honestly, I think, why the white tapes at Bloc Shop are very well set, honestly. They're always very sustained, and it's not like they just set, like a moderate boulder or an easy boulder and then just throw one random weird crux move in it. And if you can just do that one move, you can send the boulder. They are really good at making sure you have like the white tape level of fitness in order to climb a white tape at Bloc Shop. And that's always why I feel like they're such a fun experience and a cool experience to battle with. And so we're going to move on to another one here, as you can see. And this one was definitely physically difficult, but definitely not like as strengthy based as the red one we were just trying. And this one definitely had an element of mystery as well. These two white slopers here that I'm grabbing, I'd never seen before, let alone grabbed. So when I was looking at this boulder, I had no idea what to expect. I was wondering if these holes if they would just be like super bad and like impossible to use. But with enough heel hooks and toe hooks, I was able to apply a good amount of tension on these slopers and figure out a sequence. And also this first move is really cool. Initially, I thought I could just campus statically up to the left pinch, but it actually felt easier to do like the flip move, which seems like it'd be intended. So this boulder was well set. Their little coordination move ends up being the best sequence instead of just staticking it. And it was definitely funky trying to figure out this weird heel hook, toe hook situation. And then, okay, now I got to match my toe hook, bring up a left heel. And then even this next move is cool. I have to slide my right toe hook up so that I can reach the pinch. And the pinch is pretty good. It allows me to cut feet on these couple holds to work my foot up. But this last move is a lot bigger than it looks. Like this camera angle doesn't do the last move justice. It's definitely like a big yank. And I definitely built up some pump from that red boulder. Like getting pretty high on it a couple times. So both of these like attempts on this white, I'm getting like mega pumped as I'm setting up the last move. And here we have my second finished dropper in the row. So I think I'm about to say to Maddie, who's like sitting off camera. So literally the session that I came back after the Salt Lake City North American Cup, I came to Bloc Shop Chabanel like right after, and there was a green holds white tape on the wall just to the right of this that I dropped the finish hold of 3 times, and it was very triggering, and the boulder was epic, but I couldn't quite send it. And so now here we are. I've just come back from another North American Cup, and I'm dropping the finish move of this white tape twice. So on this attempt, it was either going to be history repeated, and we would have 3 white tape finish drops, or I could finally conquer the curse. So let's find out if I'm able to. I am able to. And there wasn't really a trick. It was just like how fast and flowy could I climb and like optimize every little bit of micro percentage of energy and just have that little extra 2% left in the tank to be able to do the last move. Also, I forgot to mention this in the last episode, but you may have noticed that I'm wearing a new pair of Tomoe Narasaki Pros. So I've been climbing in these shoes for a while, the TN Pros by Unparallel, and this is the second pair of Tomoes I'm wearing. And the reason that I'm wearing these new Tomoes right now, rather than trying another shoe, is because I briefly talked about this in the Veil episode, but these shoes continue to grow on me, and I really, really like them. And I think that it's going to be hard to beat these shoes for me personally. I definitely want to get to the flagship Pros and the souped ups by Unparallel very soon. Those are the ones that I want to try next, but they're going to be hard pressed to beat the Tomoes in terms of my absolute favorite and my choice of comp shoe, because they're really, really growing on me. So anyway, the point of this new pair is that my first pair of Tomoes are past their prime for sure. They're a bit too soft to be perfect, in perfect comp condition. So I want to break this new pair in for the next North American Cup coming up in Ottawa. And I want these in perfect comp shape, which I think they will be. And then the other cool fact about these shoes is that these Tomoes are a half size US smaller than my last pair of Tomoes. So I'm telling you how much I like the Tomoe Narasaki Pros. I really, really like them. And I trusted them with my life in the Salt Lake City North American Cup and the Vail North American Cup. And they were a half size too big for me. I was very generous with the sizing at first because they were shipping me some shoes and I wanted to at least be able to try them and not have them be too small. So I'm okay, let's go a half size generous. And it turned out they were a bit too big, and I still really liked them. And I still was able to compete in them. But now I'm wearing a performance fit. So I think actually at this current moment in time for the second session, it looks like I'm wearing the older pair just because my feet hurt from wearing the new ones a lot in the morning. But yeah, I'm breaking in this performance pair, which are fitted even better than the older ones. And I can already notice an extra boost. So I basically took what is now kind of becoming my favorite pair of shoes and making them even better, which is awesome. And I think they'll be broken in perfect time for the next North American Cup too, which I'm excited about. We will break in this new pair of TN Pros, use them in the North American Cup in Ottawa, and then I'll get to some new shoes, try some newer models. But for now, I want to stick with a shoe that I'm very familiar with and I very much trust in order to go execute nicely at the last North American Cup of the season. But let's tune back into the session now. So I got one black tape send under my belt to really get nice and fully warm for this white tape project that I wanted to get revenge on. And this red boulder is actually going to feature a pretty fun tip of the day, I think. So today's tip of the day is going to be a pretty cool one, I think. And today we're going to talk about how you can cheat super tensiony based moves in some scenarios. So this move in particular it's very difficult to execute this move with the proper amount of tension, especially from a ground attempt. Often when your body's fatigued, it's really hard to keep body tension throughout your whole body while you're just really tired, because all of the little muscles that are required to keep the tension on a foothold like this are just really tired from doing the beginning moves of a climb, especially when one is long like this. So a lot of times these super tensiony based moves can be quite hard to do on a Sengo, whereas when I go try this move individually, it's not too bad to stick the tension move, as you saw that I did earlier. So the tip of the day for this scenario is going to be the fact that the next hold I'm going to is pretty good in this situation, and even after doing the tension-based move, I already kind of have to jump to the next hold. So the way that we can cheat the tension move in this situation is just connect the movements. So it's almost like I'm doing kind of a paddle move off of this crimp, but it's not quite. It's basically I'm just taking what would be like a 3-step move, you could say. Step 1 would be actually pulling and moving to this crimp. Step 2 would be holding the tension on this crimp, like keeping the foot and contracting my core and really controlling this position. And then move 3 is just like a little bit of a dead point kind of jump to a pretty good hold for the finish. But basically, when we cheat this scenario, we can just turn that 3-step move into a 2-step move and just basically delete the middle step, which is controlling the tension and keeping the foot. And by deleting it, what we do is we just make step 3 slightly harder. So the jump of going to the finish hold is now a little bit harder because we have to be a little bit more, we have to think a bit quicker and be a bit quicker on our feet when we're jumping to the hold, because we have less time to sort of set up and think about just a little pop up to the finish hold. Since we're ditching the scenario in which we're controlling the crimp, we're just going to move straight off of it. So that's what I realized on that I can actually do on this boulder. I basically just control the crimp for as long, like a little bit of a microsecond, just so that I can sort of reset up and now switch from pulling with my left toe to actually pushing off of it, and switch from catching the left crimp to actually pulling off of it. So I basically have to, within like half a second to a second, make this transition. But making this transition and then just committing to the jump to the finish is much, much easier than actually trying to hold the tension move on this boulder. But that being said, like, you can't always just cheat tensiony based moves like this by like pulling straight through them, because in the situation where, like, let's say the finish hold was blocked, or it's not a hold in which we could jump to, then we can't obviously, we wouldn't be able to make this sort of thing work. But since we're lucky enough to have like a nice big target, good hold for a finish, this gives us the opportunity to connect the two moves and cheat the tensiony based moves. So definitely keep an eye out for really hard tensiony moves that you could potentially cheat just by connecting the two moves and eliminating what would be like a 3-step process normally for a move like this. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for this situation. And yeah, this red boulder is like the perfect example of the white tapes at Block Shop that are just at my absolute peak physical limit. I was like really enjoying the battle that I was having with this boulder. And the other nice thing about this boulder is, at first when I looked at it, I said, okay, I mean, it's just some crimps in the steep. Like, it doesn't look like that cool of a boulder. But these moves are actually really well set and actually quite intricate. And it's not just like a low effort crimp boulder. Like, there's some cool cross moves, some perfectly set tensiony moves, and some epic like hero swinging we have to do. So this is actually like a really well set finger power boulder. So shout out to the Block Shop setters for just always crushing these white tapes. And so now, as you can see, I finally realized that I could stick that kind of paddly move at the end individually. But then on my last attempt, I fell on it from the start because it's still difficult to execute. Like, it's definitely easier to do it on the Sengo with this beta, but it's not easy. It's still hard. And so here we got a pretty good looking attempt. I'm flowing through the beginning nicely, and I'm now realizing I can also keep the toe hook in order to go to this crimp, which is super helpful. It saves energy, and I'm able to finally send this boulder. And I had to fight too. Like, it was like a little internal battle. Every time I got to that right hand crimp, I would always get nervous, and I had to have like the mental battle to stay composed and stay psyched. And that last attempt, I finally was like full composure, full try hard, and I was able to get a cool send of that white tape boulder that was definitely at like my physical limit of what I can climb, I think. And while we're finishing off on some cool looking boulders in our session at Block Shop Chabanel, I want to touch on an idea that I forgot to in the last episode, and I was actually kind of bummed by it because it's definitely been on the top of my mind recently. So for anyone that watched the Vail North American Cup episode and stuck around that super long video to check out my tip of the day from that episode, the tip of the day was like, the super long story short is basically like, over the years, I've really learned to find ways to love my whole process and really enjoy all the bits of climbing that I do, rather than treat it as work and as training just to purely do well in competition. And what that means is like making sure that the training isn't all for nothing if the competition doesn't go well. And so anyway, what I wanted to add on to that idea and what I've been feeling recently is, you know that you really buy into the idea of loving the process and loving everything you do when you have like a really good comp like I just did in Vail, and then like within 2 to 3 days, the way I was feeling was like, okay, you know, Vail was awesome, like it was a great comp, but you know what? The hype is done. I'm done with the Vail hype. I can't wait to just get back to the gym and get back to climbing. And I don't know if I've ever felt like that as much as I have in the recent days. Like the quickness in which I was like, okay, the Vail hype is done. I'm just psyched to go climb and do our regular training sessions and just make our regular videos. It was so fast. And like making these videos and just having our regular fun sessions in all these great gyms is basically just as fulfilling as doing really well in the Vail North American Cup. And that's what I mean about like really trying to love your process and love everything you do, because you don't have to have a really, really good competition to achieve satisfaction from climbing or from other aspects of life. And that's like one of the biggest gains I've made in recent years in terms of my head game and attitude towards climbing. So let's talk about our next day of training. So after this double block shop day, we're going to be having a boulder session at Rose Block. But what I did was not film it myself. I met up with Loi, who is a fellow content creator in Montreal and a friend of mine, and we filmed a vlog which will be coming out on his channel. So I'm not sure what his production is like these days, so I don't know when this vlog would come out. But what that means is you should go over to his channel. I will link it in the description, and you should subscribe to him so that you can see when that video comes out. And also, I think Loi and I are at the point as well where we're probably going to be doing more projects together in general. And, you know, a lot of those projects will show up on his channel. So regardless, you should definitely go subscribe to his channel and keep an eye out for any time I'll be popping up on there. But yeah, we had a really fun session, and we got like a lot of content from that day. Actually, it was a really, really fun day. So keep an eye out for that. And for now, we're just going to wrap up our couple days of training with our hangboard at home. So while I was having my mega day at Rose Block, filming a lot of content with Loi, we ended up being like so busy and caught up in what we were doing that I wasn't able to get to my mini workout of dips and pistol squats, which was not too bad. It's not imperative that I'm executing these workouts. For the most part, the strength is already built, and it is sort of just it's like about maintaining the coordination of those movements. But it wasn't too bad that I missed out on the workout. But I definitely didn't want to miss out on the crimp hangs. It's very important to keep my crimps feeling like just always activated and healthy and ready to try hard all the time. And I feel like I have pretty volatile, not volatile, but my finger health is very important for me to maintain. And if I skip out on a lot of my hangbar workouts, I definitely feel like it puts me more at risk to hurting myself, like just crimping in a normal training session. It's almost like a stretch that I need to stretch. And if I don't stretch it enough, I sort of lose the mobility. That's sort of like the analogy I can use. So I definitely need to do a lot of hangboard in order to maintain like strong, stable fingers and feel like I can avoid injuring myself during my climbing sessions. So yeah, it's important that I get these quick couple hangboard sessions in before the North American Cup. And for those who missed the last episode, by the way, this is obviously a home hangboard setup. And this the brand of this hangboard is called Clevo. The information for Clevo Climbing is actually in the description, and we're affiliated with them if you're interested in checking out this hangboard for yourself. So that's the end of today's episode. Make sure you go subscribe to Loi and keep an eye out for projects that we do together. And as for the next episode of COMPCLIMB, I'm not sure where we will be climbing yet, but we are back to our regular awesome sessions of bouldering in such an epic city of Montreal. So wherever we're going to be going, it's going to be a good facility and it's going to be a hype session. So look forward. Insert catch of a toaster here.